Here's the biggest understatement you'll hear today. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, Marvel's attempts at big screen glory just didn't work out. Back then, Marvel didn't make movies in-house, and so in 1986 they partnered with George Lucas and Universal to bring us an insane adaptation of Howard the Duck, complete with duck-on-girl action.
Think I might find happiness in the animal kingdom, Ducky?
Like they say, Dal. Love's strange. We could always give it a try.
Okay. Let's go for it, Mr. Macho.
And in 1989, Marvel released a Punisher movie starring Dolph Lundgren. Then there's this bizarre Fantastic Four movie that was never released. That's a whole other story. It was in this era that Wesley Snipes was approached to play Black Panther, and he was really into it. So how close did we come to seeing a Black Panther movie starring Wesley Snipes, and where does the name Black Panther come from anyway? Let's find out. Just a quick PSA before we get started. Black Panther is for everyone, full stop. This morning I received this message from my friend Gary, and I was already wondering how I was going to get this point across. I think this will do nicely. So here's a handy test to determine if this movie is for you. Do you think you're a nerd? Do you like comics? Do you like comic book movies? Do you like movies in general? Do you have a ticket? Do you have a pulse? Now forget all the questions. Black Panther's for you because Black Panther's for everyone. Moving on. T'Challa, the Black Panther, is a member of Marvel's Illuminati and Avenger, king of the African nation of Wakanda, and the owner of the world's largest stockpile of vibranium. This guy has a rich history both in Marvel's continuity and in the real world. He was created by comic book legends Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and first appeared in Fantastic Four number 52 in July of 1966, about a decade into the Silver Age of comics. According to Marvel Comics, The Untold Story by Sean Howe, the Black Panther got his name when Stan Lee heard about the African American political organization, but it wasn't the one you're probably thinking about. You see, in 1965, there was a short-lived political party in Alabama founded by 5 citizens. It called itself the LCFO, or Lowndes County Freedom Organization, and its goal was to turn the tide of the local election against the Democratic Party of Alabama, which was way into white supremacy at the time. Long story short, after first using a dove as their symbol, they eventually settled on a Black Panther, the mascot of Clark College, now known as Clark Atlanta University, and that's how they became known as the Black Panther Party. The other Black Panther Party was founded in 1966 by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale and took its name from the original, but it was the LCFO that first inspired Stan Lee to bring back a character that he and Jack Kirby had put on the shelf named the Coal Tiger. This character was reworked into the original Black Panther. If you want to know more, then my friend Scott Nicewonder did a breakdown of this topic over at NerdSync. However, we need to move along and answer our questions about Wesley Snipes. So what does any of this have to do with the Black Panther on the big screen? Technically very little, but I do see it as much-needed context. Black Panther's creation and real-world origin explain why someone like Wesley Snipes would work so hard for so long to see this character make a big-screen debut. Black Panther was nothing short of revolutionary. He was the first African superhero in mainstream comics, and for someone like Snipes, born in 1960s America, the character was and still is an enduring symbol of how far this country has come. Sadly, it can also be a reminder of how far we have to go. However, there's a much more important reason that I've brought all of this up, but to get there, we have to go back to the future. Fast forward to the mid to late 1990s, Wesley Snipes was a superstar. Even still, getting a Black Panther movie made was an uphill battle that he would eventually lose. There were multiple rewrites and director changes. That, combined with the woefully inadequate and unsatisfactory CG of the time, and the project was doomed. In order to bring the nation of Wakanda to life in the way they wanted, they would have had to actually build portions of it, and that was out of the question, wasn't even considered. At the time, matte paintings were frequently used for backgrounds, establishing shots, and even to transform buildings, but things added in this way could not be interacted with by the cast and could sometimes be hit and miss. Wesley Snipes standing on a giant panther statue just wasn't going to happen. Even 1995's Toy Story, while advanced for its time, actually chose toys as the focus of the movie because of the plastic-like appearance of the CG available at the time. Still, with a small personal story, the movie could have been done, just in a more limited form. Snipes felt strongly that Africa was too often shown as a stereotypical bleak and barren land, and the idea of a vast, technologically advanced civilization was a very forward-thinking idea. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter back in January, Snipes had this to say about the ill-fated project.
I think Black Panther spoke to me because he was noble. He was the antithesis of the stereotypes presented and portrayed about Africans, African history, and the great kingdoms of Africa. It was something that the black community and the white community hadn't seen before.
Unfortunately, Marvel was not the powerhouse then that it is today. Back then it was DC Comics that enjoyed success in the theater, and Marvel was nearly bankrupt. In fact, in 1996, they actually declared bankruptcy. Money was not the problem, though. When pitching the idea, many people would automatically assume that the movie was associated with Huey Newton and Bobby Seale's Black Panther Party. Of course, we know that it's not, but since both debuted in the same year with the same name, and with the party being well known and the character not so much, one can see why it was such an uphill battle to bring the project to life. To quote Snipes from the interview again, quote,
"They think you want to come out with a black beret and clothing, and then there's a movie."
The movie went through multiple scripts and directors after Columbia was chosen as the studio for the project. However, the movie never made its way out of development hell. Snipes, however, was not deterred. He took what he had learned from this experience and moved forward with another Marvel property, Blade. Just one more quote from Snipes, and I'll link this interview in the description below.
It was a natural progression and a readjustment. They both had nobility. They both were fighters. So I thought, hey, we can't do the King of Wakanda and the vibranium and the Hidden Kingdom in Africa. Let's do a black vampire.
And that's the story of Marvel's Black Panther, two revolutionary political parties, Wesley Snipes, and the movie Blade. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a comment, but be nice to each other, and give this video a like and share it on Reddit and Twitter. That really helps the channel grow. This video is brought to you by our lovely patrons from Patreon. You can support the channel at patreon.com/fancyteeth. $1 is equal to roughly 400 ad views, and since YouTube took our ads away, the channel could really use your help if you can afford it. Until next time, guys, be kind to each other. I'm Jay Parks.